Looks like we're live on Facebook as well. Hello to our entire social media community. Got to get my words straight today. So happy to have this chance to be with you. We're live. Hopefully that's obvious by now. It's Wednesday, so happy Wednesday. Happy Hump Day to everybody. This last Wednesday before we get to Hanukkah next week, as well as Christmas and Christmas Eve and other celebrations. So exciting times as we draw to the close of the year. I really appreciate the chance to connect with you today. We started a dialogue about year end a few weeks ago on these lives. Hi, Lori. Good to see you here. AJ, good to see you joining us up there on Instagram. But we started a dialogue about year end and about next year. And last week we did a live that we talked about the one thing that you probably know intuitively, right? It probably doesn't require a lot of thinking, that you need to work on, or an action that you need to take to make sure your goals and aspirations and the things that you're thinking about and dreaming of for 2020 come true. And today we're going to take this a step further. We're going to get a little more nuanced in our ideas and our thinking. Hello, Victoria. Hello, Jana. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And we're going to talk about, what it takes from a holistic standpoint to be successful, to make things come true. The title of this is Finding Your Rhythm. And part of that is because routine is a part of being success. And so let me back up before we dive into those details. Probably everybody listening at one time or the other, you probably had your dad tell you, or a mentor or school teacher, someone might tell you that failure to plan is essentially planning to fail. And as tired as that saying or slogan is, it's really true, or at least in my experience, it's true. And I imagine in your own experience, you'd probably have to admit that even though it was something probably said to you in your youth that you didn't want to hear, it's really a true statement. So the question is, as we leap off into 2020, right? A brand new decade, that's exciting. What's the plan? What are you going to do to make these things, these declarations that you're putting together, these ideas that you have of how you would like 2020 to look for you? What are you doing? What's the plan to cause that to happen? Because as you think about all these things, the one thing that I've come to recognize is without an actionable plan, we can have all the aspirations in the world, and we can be really sincere in these, declarations, right? We wake up on New Year's Day, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to accomplish this, and I'm going to accomplish that. But if we don't have a plan, a methodology, the chances of that sticking and lasting and actually coming to fruition are pretty small, right? And we don't want that to be the case, right? We want these things to come true, these things that we're thinking about. And here's what I've discovered. The biggest challenge to your plans, the biggest challenge for whatever your vision of success is to come true in December 2020 has more to do with your current habits and behaviors, your current environment, than any other single factor. Because in order to make something new occur, you want to reach new levels of success, you've got some ideas about your health, whatever it happens to be that is your focus for the year ahead. In order for that to occur, something's going to have to change, or it wouldn't be this new idea and aspiration that you have coming to the close of 2019, right? You're on one course today. You've finished 2019 as you have. You want something different to occur in the next year. And so your current routine, the current rhythm of life is probably the biggest single thing that you've got to wrestle down and change. You've literally, I know we're using this as a metaphor, but you've got to find a way to change the music, change the beat, change the tone. Change is going to be a part of being success, not just in that I want to change this action about myself, but also the environment that you live in. And so having recognized this a few years ago, I'm like a lot of people, particularly in my 30s, I would really have these tremendous aspirations and ideas about how I wanted the next year to finish that was better than the year that I was in. And I'd make these declarations, and I was extremely firm, and I wrote it down, and I visualized, and I made a vision board. But yet at the end of the next year, the changes that I made, the growth that I had was subtle compared to what my ideas were. And what I began to realize is that it really has everything to do about my environment, because if I don't change some dynamics there, none of these other things really have a chance to grow and prosper as a part of my daily routine. So I have a list, and it's a list that I revisit. I really revisit it multiple times per year, but really towards the end of the year, I begin to think about these things, because if you're like me, you've got some ideas about how you want to finish in 2020. I've been thinking about it, right? I've got some vision of what I want to occur, but what I know is some other things are going to have to be left behind. I'm going to have to leave them in 2019 in order for 2020 to be the year I want it to be. And so here's first things first in this regard for me. Make sure, right, we've got a few weeks to the end of the year, make sure you're really clear about what it is that you want to occur in 2020 that's different on some level, some type of success or change. Do you want your business to do something? Do you want something to happen with your health? How about your family? What is it that you want to be different, right? Do you have a clear picture of that in your mind? Do you have perhaps a vision board? Could you even reduce it to paper? Right, a couple sentences or a paragraph, or if you're a writer, something longer where you can really express, right, what it is that you want to occur. Because until that's solidly in its place and you're committed to it, the rest of it's just sort of window dressing that's not going to have a big impact. So we got to start with first things first, knowing very clearly what we want to occur, and have that image in our mind. And for me, here's a simple way to do it if it's not clear to you how to make that happen. Envision you're standing here December 18th, 2020, and you wake up and you look around. What's visibly different that represents the success that you enjoyed this past year? What would it look like that would be different? Would there be a new home that you're in, right? Something as dramatic as that. Would there be another car or a different car in the driveway? Would you be more enthused about going to the mailbox because when you get the bills, they're paid off, or the credit cards are paid off? Or when you get up, is there a new wardrobe because you've slimmed down, or you've done something in that regard? Is it that you want to change some eating habits, and so when you walk into your kitchen and open up the fridge for breakfast, does that environment look different? And is it a part of the routine and the habits that are going to support your long-term objectives for yourself and your family and the example that you're establishing? So first things first is to get a real clear idea of where you want to go, what it is that you want to accomplish. Number two, and this is equally important, you got to make sure your mind is right. All of those obstacles from this past year, 2019, 2018, and all the years before, all those things that knocked you off your path to success, they're going to be there in 2020. Those daily distractions, changes in the environment, the economy, whatever it happens to be. So the winds that can blow you off course will continue to blow in the year ahead. It's just a question of your preparation for them. Because in this case, just like if you're planning to succeed, if you're planning for the obstacles and things that get in your way and how you're going to manage them will have a meaningful impact on your ability to push past whatever you must, because success rarely follows a straight line. In fact, in all of my experience, it's sort of this up and down zigzag. And what I'm looking for is if I'm taking 2 steps forward, it's only 1 back, right? Now, on occasion, I've gone 2 steps forward and 2 back, or 3 back, right? So I kind of got to dig out of a hole myself, but know that and prepare for that mentally. Get your mind right. And then here's a question that I'll ask you. In every aspect of life, particularly if you're changing something personally or professionally, and oftentimes, unfortunately, this comes from people that we know and love, there's a resistance to the change that's going on with you by your community. And in fact, some of those individuals aren't very nice about it, right? They don't just say no to you, they say no to you, dummy. So how are you going to react? How are you going to react when someone that you believe is your fan turns out not to be a fan of what you're doing and the success that you're looking to create for yourself and those around you? Maybe it makes them uncomfortable. Maybe it reminds them of something they need to work on, but they're not willing to do. So how are you going to handle that from a prep standpoint? Because it's going to happen, right? This is going to happen. And so as we think about this, right, we want to have a real clear vision of where we want to go. We want to think through clearly what we're going to do when someone tries or some event tries to blow us off track, because that's going to happen. It happens really, life happens, right? It happens almost daily. And so you got to make sure these things are firm. And one of the things I've come to recognize in this part about getting your mind right is you're going to have days where you're losing. Every day is not a day of success. You're going to have perhaps several days in a row where you've been busting your hump, right? You've been doing your best and you get on the scale and it's not going the direction you want, or you look at your business and it's not accumulating in the way that you want it to, or you had a certain expectation for a certain event that didn't happen. We all have these moments, and unfortunately they can go on for a few days or even a few weeks. What's your reaction to this occurring? Because here's what I've also learned. Just like you're going to have naysayers, when your own energy is depleted, where do you go? Now, for me, there are two places I go. The first one is, this is really sort of this insider tip type of thing, is I look for inspiration. And in fact, I feed my inspiration almost on a daily basis. I go look for it, right? I look for inspiring stories in my local paper. I look for it in books that I read. I like to read about people that have overcome obstacles, and I often look for things that really they've overcome obstacles that are far more challenging and far more difficult than I can possibly conceive of experiencing, right? And when I look at what they've done and the things they've overcome, I'm not cynical about it, right? I say to myself, man, if they can do it, I can do it. So I actively feed this aspect of my life. People ask me, Eddie, you look like you're pretty happy when we see you on the videos. That's in part because it's not because I don't have bad days or things of that kind. It's because I try to focus on the positive things I have. And when that focus isn't clear for me, I look around at other events and other things to drive and inspire and build my own inspiration, so that wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing, whomever I'm talking to, they can get the best from me because I'm feeling the best about the circumstances. You have to decide how you're going to do that. But there's a couple things I'll tell you. One, if you don't have a clear vision where you're going. Two, you're not working on your mind and dealing with potential negatives and those things that are predictable, your chances of succeeding are diminished. And here, we want to stack the deck for success. All right. So number three, and this feeds a little bit off of this idea of looking for inspiration. As we move forward, if you find yourself in one situation and you want to elevate your situation, in all likelihood, beyond just actions you need to take, you need to acquire some education. You need to refine some skills. All of us need to make sure, in addition to finding folks that inspire us and motivate us, that there's someone that teaches us, a mentor. And it's great if that's someone that's local and it's a personal relationship, but that may not be the case. And in fact, in the early part of my career, that wasn't the case, but that was okay because I could look for mentors that had done audio series or video series or written books that, just like I'm looking for inspiration regarding someone's success, I'm looking for inspiration in terms of my education, someone I can learn from. Jim Rohn, a lot of you will know that name. He's no longer with us, but he was a tremendous speaker in the personal development world. He had a business philosophy that, man, the very first time I heard him really resonated with me, and I almost chased him down. I drove nearly across country to events that he was speaking at. I think I bought every audio, every CD, every cassette, because that's what I was buying in the beginning was CDs and audio cassettes and then CDs, and I've read the books that are out there. There's actually a website, if you go to jimrohn.com, you can find his material, but I found that I resonated with his attitude and business philosophies in the same way that I resonated with people like Dale Carnegie along the way, and others, Stephen Covey. We've talked about some of the habits of highly effective people. Stephen Covey's material is good in this regard. It won't be difficult if you search for people that put material together that not only inspires you, but helps to refine your skills. In our particular arena of direct sales, the GoPro series by Eric Worre is a tremendous series. That book alone has quantified these tried and true habits and lessons to be successful. Our own Alan Newell and other leaders inside our company, they've got experience and they're willing to share it. And so you need to make sure, just if you got a clear vision of where you're going, you've got your mind right. 3, you find a mentor and someone that you spend time with or their material on a weekly basis. Number 4, and we're going to bring this down to the finish line, you need to plan to be successful. And what I mean by that is a little more in terms of detail than in the beginning where I talked about failure to plan is, really planning to fail. In this case, what I mean is you need to work on the organization of your life on a daily basis, your commute, your private time in the evening hours, your weekend. You need to work on that organization of your life to make sure that it's organized around helping you succeed and helping others that you're responsible for succeed as well. It's a good time to look in the mirror and then look in your environment and say to yourself, is this an environment that invites and encourages success? Are there things I need to remove from this environment? Are there people I need to remove from this environment because they're getting in the way of me reaching the full measure of my potential, both with personal performance as well as the example I'm establishing for my family and my community? This can be a challenging issue to confront, but planning, organizing your environment to support your success is really critical. And your willingness to confront these issues will speak to just how committed you are to the success you have, right? This is one of these really confrontational issues where we look at how our life is organized. And then from a refinement standpoint, what I do from just a practical daily basis is I make it a habit of looking at my schedule on Sunday evenings. Sometimes it's Sunday afternoon, sometimes because of travel, it's really early on Monday mornings. But I literally look at my calendar, I pull it apart, not just the calendar that says I've got this call and that call or that meeting and that meeting, but the day where I'm going to be, the evening when it ends. And I think about what's going on there that's going to support or not support the goals and objectives I have for my life and that week. What do I want to accomplish? What needs to change? Sometimes I can find I'm so busy that the schedule gets in the way of me investing in my health, getting to the gym, or whatever it happens to be. And I'm prepared to call a timeout on those things. Look at my schedule, change some things around so that the investments I need to make in health or exercise or certain calls that didn't show up as a high priority, but I know are important to a relationship or someone that's struggling, whatever it happens to be, I'll make sure that there's time to accomplish that. It may mean I need to stretch my day, but it may mean more likely that I need to reorganize my day based upon the priorities that are most important to accomplishing my goals. What I find is that for most people, that's not something they do. They let things sort of just come to them, which I can appreciate that dynamic, right? It's hard to think about how we force success out of our schedule. But here's what I've learned. If you just let things happen, then very little happens. Very little happens that you intend. It's not strategic. You got to go out there and make things happen inside your schedule if you want it to be a strategic success, the one that is by your design and not happenstance. Hear me on this one. It's not easy for folks, and it's a habit that has to be developed, but it's one that you must. Napoleon Hill wrote a great book years ago, and I hope you've read it. If you haven't, I hope you'll take the time to find it and read it, called Think and Grow Rich. And don't let the title make you think it's just about money. There's far more to the story than just money. But one of the lessons in there, and there are lots of them, is you've got to be prepared to burn every bridge that isn't a bridge to the success you want. And those individuals that are willing to do that are the ones we look at that are accomplishing the bigger things we want out of life, those things that we admire, those things that people write books about, those things that are important. So this is critical that you think about how your life is organized, and is it organized in a way to support your success. And then number 5, as we bring this to a close, is you just like the commercial says, you just got to go out there and do it. And there's really no other way to get around it. I mean, if you think about it as a kid, maybe you looked at a swim pool and you wanted to jump in, it looked fun, but you kind of thought it was cold, or you kind of thought, well, maybe I don't know everybody, or whatever happens to be. But in life, you got to jump in. Now, some people want to jump into the deep end. Some people are just more wading into the shallow end. I prefer the jumping into the deep end, but even if it means for you, you just need to stick your toe in the water, just make sure you don't stop with your toe, that your foot follows, your leg follows, and eventually your entire body. Because in order for things to happen, something must occur, right? Action must occur. And even though that seems so obvious, not everybody takes that step. They can think about what they want. They've got the goals. They think about getting their mind right. They think through their inspiration, motivation. They think about mentors. They've read the books, but they just never jump into the game. You got to jump into the game, right? If you want 2020 to be all it can be for you, and I want it to be all it can possibly be for you, you got to jump into the game, right? So that's number 5, right? And then maybe the last thing I'll say in terms of sort of insider tip is, remember that your attitude is the great amplifier in all of these things. This whistle while you work attitude, recognizing that you don't get caught up in the small stuff so that you can stay focused on the big stuff. There's all kinds of dialogue we can have about attitude, and we can do that at a later time in the new part of the year. But that's one of those game changers, and one of those things where if you think your attitude might be getting in the way, reach out to someone that sits in that sort of mentor position for you, and be willing to confront these dynamics, because your attitude is a big part of your success. We posted yesterday on the corporate, the Good Inside Instagram, a great quote. And it was that the genius thing we did was we didn't give up. And maybe that's the last thing that I'll leave you with. No matter where you're at today, as you're digesting what I've shared or what other people have shared, you're digesting how you really want to make this happen in 2020. If you don't get off to a fast start, that's okay. If you find yourself in February and you haven't progressed like you wanted to, if you find yourself in March and you've even regressed some, you get into April and the spring and you're just not there. You get into July and it's not happening in the way you want it to. Really know this: no matter where you're at, the only way you can lose is to quit. That's the only way to lose, is to quit. We're each on our own individual journey. Sure, we can get caught up in watching other people's journey, and maybe we get a little jealous of how fast they're going or whatever happens to be. None of that matters at the end of the day if you're progressing towards who you want to be and what you want to accomplish. And the only way that won't occur is if you stop. So just don't stop. Make that one part of that declaration for 2020 is that I'm just not going to stop. I'm going to maintain that vision. I'm going to refine whatever the heck I must refine, and I'm just not going to stop. With that, I'll be back on with you this coming Friday for our last live of the year. But I want to express a real appreciation for everybody that logs in. Those direct messages you've been sending me are fantastic. I appreciate the dialogue. Those that comment in the comments section, it's been a lot of fun. We'll continue to do this in 2020. It's one of my goals, is to make these more efficient and better so they can better serve your interest and our interest mutually. It's a fun time, right? We have everything in front of us, and I'm proud to be on this journey with you. Go out there and make the rest of this week and the rest of the year, we still got time left, all that it can possibly be. You deserve it, and your community deserve it. So with that, bye for now, and we'll talk to you on Friday.